Hidden faith of Shiphrah and Puah, how two midwives fulfilling God's plan defied Pharaoh's decree. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, as the sun rose over the dusty roads of Egypt, a heavy shroud lay over the Hebrew people. They toiled under the oppressive yoke of Pharaoh, a king unfamiliar with the grace once shown to their forefather Joseph. The land of Egypt, once a haven of abundance and wisdom, stands transformed into a stronghold of servitude, where the cries of newborns echo under the weight of tyranny. Among the faithful who remained steadfast in the face of intimidation were two remarkable midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. In their modest dwelling, filled with the fragrances of oil and herbs, they prepared to fulfill their sacred duty, unaware that their next act would entangle them in the treacherous web of Pharaoh's decree. The edict had come down with venomous precision. Every male child born to the Hebrews was to be cast into the Nile, a decree disguised as a means to control a growing populace. Shiphrah and Puah exchanged solemn glances, their hearts heavy yet resolute. "We are called to bring life, not extinguish it," Shiphrah whispered, her voice barely above the din of clattering tools used to fashion bricks and mortar. With renewed purpose, they entered the homes of the Hebrew women, transforming every birth into a divine act of defiance. Their hands worked with skill imbued by sacred trust as they assisted mothers in labor, whispering quiet prayers for the souls cradled in the wombs before them. "Lord, preserve these lives." Puah would plead, her spirit alive with the promise of multiplication that God had bestowed upon their ancestors. Word swiftly traveled through the dusty streets of Egypt that the Hebrew women were thriving, giving birth to sons in abundance. Fear gripped Pharaoh, prompting his officers to seek out Shiphrah and Puah. When they arrived, expecting to demand accountability, the midwives skillfully recounted the vigor of the Hebrew women. "Before we arrive, they have already given birth," they claimed, their words clothed in truth, even as they concealed the greater truth that life was being saved. Days morphed into weeks, and a sense of fortitude began to flourish within the midwives. Their families grew joyfully, unbeknownst to them that their acts of service harbored their own peril. The songs of newborns filled the air like sweet incense, drawing the ire of Pharaoh ever closer. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. However, stone hearts are ever prone to suspicion, and rumors began to circulate through the halls of power in Pharaoh's court. With each male child saved, the danger for Shiphrah and Puah multiplied. They stood at the precipice of calamity, wrestling with doubt, their resolve shaken yet fortified by faith. What if their defiance was uncovered? Could they trust the God who hears their whispered prayers amidst the clamor of oppression? As they knelt under the watchful sky, they sought strength and wisdom. In the shadows of their decisions, they perceived the dawning light of divine purpose amidst these harrowing days. The fate of their people hung on a thread, interwoven with their courageous stand. Would their faith and actions usher God's deliverance, or would they face the ultimate price for their obedience? The night enveloped them as they prayed, leaving their destinies intricately bound to the unfolding drama of generations yet to come. As dawn broke upon the land, the mistrust of Pharaoh thickened like a storm cloud, overshadowing the hopes that had been kindled in the hearts of the Hebrew families. Among them, Shiphrah and Puah continued their sacred labors, driven not by fear, but by resolute faith. They drew strength from the stories of their forefathers, tales of deliverance and promise, nourished by the covenant God had made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Together, they marveled at the living testimony of God's providence, even in the face of utter despair. Yet, whispers of insurrection stirred within the palace walls, a murmuring that threatened to unearth the hidden bravery of these midwives. Pharaoh, shrouded in pride, was determined to secure his dominion through ruthless control. He summoned his counselors. "These Hebrews have become too mighty," he seethed. Their fertility is a curse. We must act before they threaten our reign. At that very moment, Shiphrah and Puah were called upon again, this time not as trusted servants, but as accused rebels. They entered the grand chamber of Pharaoh, their hearts racing yet unwavering, as they approached the mighty king seated upon his throne, his eyes like daggers piercing through the haze of incense. "You stand before me, midwives, do you not?" Pharaoh's voice thundered. "You dare to defy my orders, allowing these children to live? Why do you defile my commandments?" With humility woven into their souls, Shiphrah took a step forward, her heart fluttering like the wings of a frightened dove, yet she found her voice steady. "O great Pharaoh, the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are lively and give birth before we can attend them." Puah, emboldened by Shiphrah's words, added, "As God is our witness, we seek only to bring forth life, not to declare war upon your command." Their testimony was laced with truth, veiled in divine wisdom. Pharaoh's eyes narrowed, considering the possibility that this was more than mere strategy. Might it be a divine hand at work? Yet the darkness of his heart would not concede the victory. "I shall not tolerate failure," he warned, gesturing to his guards. "Find me these infants and see to it that my decree is executed. This will not stand unanswered." The midwives felt their faith quaking within them, even as they stood firm. Dread shadows loomed over their homes. That night, as the silence of despair began to creep in, they gathered in fervent prayer, imploring God for guidance. "O Lord," Puah whispered, her voice trembling, "we have obeyed your call. Grant us the courage to fulfill the task you have assigned us. How long must we wait for deliverance?" In the stillness, a sense of peace enveloped them, and Shiphrah sensed a stirring in her heart. "Fear not, dear sister," she said, clutching Puah's hands. "For the God of our fathers has shown his ways to be higher than our paths." As they sought to remain steadfast, a thought struck Shiphrah. Little did they know, one child in particular might change the course of their people's fate. Concealed within her heart was the promise of a child to arrive in the stillness of the coming darkness, one who would emerge from the shadows of oppression to challenge Pharaoh's might. Thus they resolved. With the embers of faith igniting their spirits, Shiphrah and Puah prepared to face the oncoming storm. Their days stretched ahead, a corridor of uncertainty, yet their hearts were anchored in the assurance that God's plan is always working in the unseen. Could these two faithful midwives be the vessels through which God would reveal his sovereign power? In the quiet stillness of the night, the cries of an unseen infant echoed, heralding a promise woven through the fabric of history, a child destined to bring forth liberation to a captive nation. What future awaited these women of valor? The tapestry of God's deliverance was only beginning to unfold. As days turned to weeks, the tension in Egypt thickened like the dust stirred by a tempest. Shiphrah and Puah remained steadfast in their clandestine mission, tending to the needs of the Hebrew women with grace and compassion, each moment infused with a divine purpose that transcended their immediate peril. With every child they delivered, hope kindled anew in the hearts of their people, igniting a fire of faith that flickered gently in the face of Pharaoh's wrath. Yet, unbeknownst to them, their acts of defiance had not gone unnoticed. The king's spies wove through the shadows of the cities, their eyes and ears alert for any glimmers of insurrection. Rumors of multiple Hebrew births spread like wildfire, and Pharaoh's heart hardened as he concluded that his decree had indeed not been fully obeyed. Each failure of command seemed to fuel the fury brewing within him. "The midwives dance with folly, believing they can thwart my will," he bellowed in another session with his counselors. "Let them be seized. Bring them before me once more, that they may see the might of Pharaoh's reign." In fearful anticipation, Shiphrah and Puah prepared for their summons, understanding the gravity of the moment before them. As they entered the grand chamber yet again, the air charged with a dangerous mix of dread and resolve. Pharaoh loomed above them, accentuated by golden relics of deceit and false security. The throne that elevated him seemed to cast a shadow over the very light of their existence. "You insolent women!" Pharaoh roared, every syllable laced with venom. "You have defied my decree. But know this: you are not above the power of this kingdom. Striding closer, he leaned forward, his voice dropping to a chilling whisper. "What say you in your defense?" With trembling hearts and steadfast eyes, the midwives exchanged a knowing glance, a silent acknowledgment of the call they served. Shiphrah stepped forth, her voice unwavering. "O mighty Pharaoh, if we have failed you, it is not by our intent. These Hebrew women, as we have said, are strong and bear children in the throes of labor swiftly, so we cannot always attend to them." Puah, emboldened by the fervor of Shiphrah, continued, "As God is our witness, we are but vessels of life, nurturing the very future of our people. Our hearts are bound to his covenant, which calls us to protect, not destroy." Pharaoh's eyes darkened, shadows dancing upon his brow as he wrestled with their words. He appeared poised to unleash a tempest of punishment upon them, a mere flick of his wrist could seal their fate. Yet, the whispers of a greater design pulsed faintly in the atmosphere, one that transcended Pharaoh's tyrannical grasp. In a moment of divine intervention, just as anger threatened to consume him, the throne room was filled with a sudden clamoring from the courtyard below. The guards, agitated and unsettled, rushed in with news of the birth of another Hebrew boy, one not feigned by the midwives' hand but born to a Hebrew mother outside their care. With the sound of cries piercing the chamber, Pharaoh's plans became momentarily fraught. "What is this?" he snapped, turning from the midwives to the tumult just brought forth. The sound tugged at the fibers of his soul, a reminder that life persisted, regardless of his order. The midwives grasped the divine nuance beneath the surface. Though Pharaoh's might felt all-consuming, it was but an illusion against the backdrop of God's unwavering promise. In that lingering moment, with hearts aflame from the supernatural, they understood they were part of something much greater, a tapestry woven by the Almighty to bring forth salvation and deliverance. Their faith, though tested in fire, became the very steel that would shape the destiny of a nation. Could it be that through their trial, they would ignite a full rebellion of hope for their people? As they departed, their spirits buoyed by a righteousness rooted in the divine, it dawned upon them, the cries of the newborn mirrored not just suffering, but the advent of the very hope they had prayed for. They knew not the fullness of God's plan, but they cherished the truth that a child was destined to arise, one who would lead not just their people, but perhaps shake the foundations of the world. What saga of deliverance awaited this child? What fate would not just Shiphrah and Puah, but all of Israel encounter? The hands of providence were at work, and they were ready to unveil the might of their God, whose ways were beyond comprehension and yet so divinely assured. As the days passed into weeks following their perilous audience with Pharaoh, Shiphrah and Puah returned to their humble dwelling, the weight of their choices resting heavily upon their hearts. Each woman bore within her spirit the kindling of faith ignited by the cries of the newborns, a divine hope that had taken root despite the oppressive hand of their ruler. They whispered prayers of gratitude to the God of Israel, the God of their fathers, for the strength bestowed upon them in that moment of trial. Yet the tension in Egypt was not merely a distant ache, it was palpable, a storm gathering upon the horizon. Word of the Hebrew midwives' defiance spread beyond the royal court, weaving through the fabric of the Hebrew community. The gathering murmurs spoke of a reckoning, of faith in the God who had promised their forefathers a land flowing with milk and honey. As the midwives moved among their people, their hands cradled newborns and hearts shared stories of deliverance that would become the bedrock of hope within the nation. In the quiet halls of their modest home, Shiphrah pondered deeply, her spirit burdened by foresight and grace. Puah, she spoke softly, the stillness of night amplifying her resolve, what if we are to witness the hand of God in ways we cannot yet fathom? These children, each one, carry within them the spark of his promise. Puah, feeling the weight of destiny and purpose, nodded slowly. Indeed, dear friend. In our obedience, perhaps they are destined for greatness, to lead our people out of this darkness. Their dreams melded into an unbreakable bond, rooted in courage and united by their faith. Meanwhile, Pharaoh's wrath brewed yet again. A new decree, born of his fury and paralleled by paranoia, swept through the land. All Hebrew boys were to be cast into the river, a revised edict intended to quench the burgeoning life of what he viewed as a threat to his reign. The horror of such a decree sent tremors through the hearts of the Hebrew people. Despair danced through their camps, sowing seeds of fear and uncertainty. Daring to defy, two women of courage once more stood before the Pharaoh's decree. "We must act," Shiphrah urged Puah, her eyes alight with fervor. "Each life has been woven with a purpose, our God's plan unfurling through these innocent ones, we cannot stand idly by." They turned to the elders, gathering in secret to discuss the dangers and possibilities that lay ahead. In hushed tones, they spoke of hidden places where mothers might go to give birth in safety. Faith twinkled in each eye as they recognized the divine orchestration unfolding. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to them, within the lofty halls of Pharaoh's palace, a princess with a compassionate heart stirred in her sleep, sensing an invisible calling yet unrecognized. Often she had gazed out at the waters of the Nile, her spirit troubled by the cries of infants carried upon the current, momentarily lifted above the sorrowful edicts of her father. As the moon bathed the land in silver light, and the stars flickered like promises kept, a divine tapestry began to weave itself through the shadows, the cries of the innocent mingling with the whispered prayers of the faithful. What purpose did the Most High have in using the heart of a princess to champion those voices? What mysterious plan was being fashioned amid the tumult in Egypt? Alas, the stage was set for a magnificent unveiling, one drenched in the fabric of divine intervention, where hope and deliverance intertwined, preparing to break forth like dawn upon a darkened land. Would the faithful yet find a leader among them, born in this season of calamity, to rise up against the despair that enveloped them? The echoes of faith continually resonated, heralding the unfolding of God's sovereign will, ever drawing nearer. And it came to pass in those days, as the heaviness of oppression filled the hearts of the Hebrew people, that the cries of the innocent grew louder against the backdrop of a silent river. The wicked decree of Pharaoh echoed through the land, a chilling warning that struck fear into the very soul of each household. Yet, amidst the despair, Shiphrah and Puah remained resolute. "Let us not lose heart," Shiphrah urged her people when they gathered beneath the cover of night. Her voice was firm, yet tender, resonating with a strength drawn from the deep wells of faith. "For our God hears the cries of his children, he has not forgotten his covenant." Puah placed her hand upon Shiphrah's arm, eyes filled with fervor. "Indeed, he has promised us deliverance. We must trust in his unfailing mercy and act. There are mothers among us who are in need of refuge. We shall prepare a place, a sanctuary of hope where their newborns might be safe from harm." And so the two midwives ventured forth, a silent oath binding their hearts and minds in service to the Most High. They sought out hidden caves where the earth whispered of safety and honored their intent with secrecy. With the strength of determination, they rallied the Hebrew women, ushering in hope among the frightful shadows cast by the mighty Pharaoh. Meanwhile, in the palace, the tender-hearted princess awoke with a start, her spirit uneasy and stirred by a dream that haunted her. She stood upon the balcony overlooking the Nile, gazing at its gentle waves that danced under the light of the stars. There, in the depths of the water, she beheld visions of Hebrew children, little ones who were lost among the currents yet called upon her heart. "What is this sorrow I feel?" she murmured, clutching the railing as she watched the river flow. "Is there not some way I can help them?" As days passed, her burden grew heavier, and she resolved to defy her father's cruel edict. She summoned her maidens and instructed them to prepare for a journey to the river. With each step toward the water, she felt the whisper of God guiding her, filling her heart with unnatural compassion. In those secret places crafted by Shiphrah and Puah, the Hebrew mothers found courage and solace. Together, they labored in love, delivering life into a world that seemed determined to extinguish it. The midwives became revered spirits, guiding hands of strength, and as word spread, more mothers found refuge in their community of hope. In their hearts, they held fast to the promise spoken by the prophet, "A remnant shall return, the children of Israel shall cry out, and I shall hear them." The despair that once clouded their hearts began to lift as the truth of deliverance dawned anew. Then, the river became a silent witness to the mighty hand of God at work, as the princess approached the reeds along its banks. As she drew near to the water's edge, she felt an urgency swell within her, a calling she could no longer resist. Suddenly, a small vessel emerged from the rushes, a basket of bulrushes tightly woven and daubed with bitumen and pitch. The princess, sensing the divine significance of this moment, reached into the water and pulled forth the vessel, her heart catching in her throat as she beheld the child within. What purpose was this? Unbeknownst to the princess, the child was destined to be the bearer of a deliverance that would turn the tide for the Hebrew people, a child who would rise to confront Pharaoh and usher a nation toward freedom. And at that very moment, the prayers of Shiphrah and Puah rose like incense before the throne of God. Would he reveal the greatness woven into their actions, the shadows of uncertainty transformed into promises fulfilled? The time was drawing near for the unveiling of his sovereign plan, where hope would be birthed anew within the land of Egypt. And it came to pass that the princess, filled with awe and tenderness, unwrapped the woven basket before her. The child therein, a boy, wept softly, and the sound pierced her heart like an echo from the heavens. She beheld his face, and suddenly the weight of her duty pressed upon her. In that sacred moment, she recognized not merely a child, but a divine appointment. "Surely, this is one of the Hebrews' children," she whispered, her heart swelling with compassion. Would she not protect him, even if it meant standing against her father's decree? She lifted the child into her arms, feeling a warmth envelop her that was far beyond maternal affection. It was as if heaven itself wrapped her in its embrace. The maidens who attended her waited in breathless silence, their own spirits stirred by the unmistakable presence of the divine. They could see at the flicker of a promise igniting the night, a thread of hope woven into the very fabric of their existence. The princess gazed into the child's eyes, and in that instant, a bond was forged, an unbreakable tie of destiny. Meanwhile, in the hidden sanctuaries fashioned by Shiphrah and Puah, the whispers of hope continued to flourish. Women gathered to share their burdens, their fears, their hopes for the future. And the midwives spoke of a God who hears, a God who redeems. Even in the darkest hour, Shiphrah reassured them, He is weaving a tapestry of deliverance. Let us not grow weary in our work, for the Lord is with us. The license to heal, to save, and to bring forth life became their rallying call, and the midwives moved through the shadows, defying the death sentence upon the infants with every birth they attended. Days turned to weeks, and with each passing moment, the oppression seemed to tighten like an iron grip around the people of Israel. Yet, within that desperation, a spark ignited. Shiphrah and Puah, aware of the growing threat upon their lives, stood vigilant, guarding both the bodies and spirits of those they served. As the princess returned to the palace, holding the child close, her father's fury loomed large. "You have disobeyed me. You dare to save a child who is marked for death." Pharaoh's voice thundered with rage. With trembling resolve, the princess replied, "Father, this child shall be named Moses, for he was drawn out of the water, and in him lies the hope of many." And so, the child became a beacon of divine purpose, even as the surrounding darkness deepened. In the hidden sanctuary, Shiphrah and Puah sensed a significant shift in the air, as though the very fabric of history was being woven anew before their eyes. They remained in prayer and fasting, for their spirits were entangled in the divine promise, and night after night, they awaited the dawn of God's deliverance. Yet, as hope burgeoned, Pharaoh unleashed further decrees more stringent, more brutal, intent on extinguishing the light that was beginning to break through the veil of despair. Unbeknownst to him, every act of oppression only served to fan the flames of faith within the hearts of the Hebrew people. What the mighty ruler failed to grasp was the profound truth that God's promises are as unyielding as the dawn that follows night. Within the cries of the oppressed, a new hymn of deliverance was being forged, one that would echo through the ages. And so, the stage was set, as the river echoed with whispers of God's unfolding plan. Little did they know the mighty hand of providence was moving among them, preparing to unleash a wave of deliverance that would shatter chains and lead them forth into freedom. For in every trial, God's purpose arises, a truth waiting to be unveiled amid the shadows. Would they see it, and would they believe? The promise stood firm, and they were on the brink of understanding the depth of His covenant, a moment that would change their lives forever. And it came to pass that the days grew heavy with the weight of oppression, and the heart of the people of Israel cried out to the God of their fathers. In the midst of this darkness, the princess bore Moses in secrecy, nurturing him with the love of a mother and the wisdom of a protector. Each night, the walls of her chamber echoed with the lullabies that spoke of hope and destiny, and the boy would coo softly as if he understood the sacred mission placed upon him. Meanwhile, the cries of the Hebrew women had turned into fervent prayers, their hope resting in the hands of the Almighty. Shiphrah and Puah convened their gatherings in the shadows, their hearts united in the purpose of preserving life against the decree of Pharaoh. "Fear not, for our labor is not in vain," Shiphrah would declare with a voice strong in faith. "We are the vessels of his plan, and he will see us through. Let us remember the promises of old," Puah added, her eyes glistening with the assurance of God's faithfulness, "for in this very dark, he is the light that guides our steps. Remain steadfast, sisters, for we stand with the hand of righteousness." Rumors of the child saved from death seeped through the alleys and washings of the Hebrew community like sweet honey. "There is a child among us. A child named Moses," they whispered, the name echoing in the minds of the weary. As they spoke, hope revived, and invisible threads of faith intertwined, stretching into the heavens. But, lo! Pharaoh's heart grew darker still. "I will not allow this rising hope," he thundered within the palace walls. "Let every male child born of the Hebrews be cast into the river, and let the hand of oppression seal their fate." Yet, unbeknownst to Pharaoh, the hand of the Almighty was weaving a plan far greater than he could comprehend. Within the murky depths of the Nile, the cries of an innocent echoed with the power to change the course of a nation. As Moses thrived in the secrecy of the palace, the midwives rejoiced alongside the women, each birth a testament of God's sustaining mercy amidst despair. And the fierce oppression ignited the rebellion of faith within the Hebrew hearts. They refused to bow before the decree of a cruel king. Each child born under the shadows of night became a proclamation of hope for the dawn that still awaited. Days turned to months, and as Moses grew, so too did the hand of God upon him. The princess spoke of his future with reverence, nurturing the child who bore divine purposes yet hidden from their eyes. "You are marked for something great, my son, a deliverer sent from the heavens," she would whisper as she stroked his brow, her heart trembling with the weight of that calling. As the cries of the oppressed reached their zenith, a profound stillness settled over the land. Shiphrah and Puah continued their labor, sensing in the depths of their souls a moment of reckoning approaching. The burden of faith rested upon their shoulders like an unspoken covenant. In their hidden sanctuary, they knelt in prayer, imploring the God who hears and sees. "O Eternal One, fulfill your promise. Show us the way." They cried out, their voices rising in harmony, uniting their hearts in the profound hope of a world transformed by his mighty hand. And above all these things, the river flowed a silent witness to the unfolding drama of deliverance, whispering the echoes of a prophecy waiting to be realized. For the God who saves was stirring, and amidst the shadows of despair, the certainty of his plan began to emerge. Yet, even amidst such holy anticipation, what they did not see was the storm gathering on the horizon, as the might of Pharaoh clashed with the will of the Almighty. Within these fragile moments, darkness and light prepared to intertwine, a confrontation of the ages loomed closer. What deliverance awaited them, and would they have the courage to embrace the unfolding mystery of God's sovereign plan? And it came to pass as the seasons turned, that the heart of Egypt grew ever more troubled under the weight of its own ambitions. Pharaoh's decrees darkened the land, and in his palace, fear and pride intertwined like the serpent coiled upon its own tail. The cries of the newborn echoed in the ears of the wicked king, a reminder of the strength he sought to extinguish. Yet amidst this turmoil, the faith of the Hebrew midwives blossomed as a fragrant flower in a desolate desert. Shiphrah and Puah, their hands skilled in the art of bringing forth life, continued their work with fervor, defying the decree of death that hung over their people like a pall of despair. "O God of our fathers," they prayed, "let not the hands of the enemy prevail. Deliver us from this shadow of death." Their hearts beat as one, pulsating with hope and courage as the promise of deliverance lingered on the horizon. As Moses grew, the land stirred around him. Like a seedling breaking through the soil, he basked in the warmth of the princess's affection, yet his spirit held the weight of destiny. Every moment in the palace held within it the breath of God's purpose, as he learned the ways of Egypt while his true identity remained hidden beneath the robes of royalty. One day, as the sun poured its golden light upon the gardens, Moses ventured outside to wander among the people. There, he witnessed the toil of his brethren, their backs bent and faces lined with despair. An unquenchable fire ignited within him, and he felt the weight of their oppression wrap around his heart. In a fateful moment, he beheld an Egyptian taskmaster striking a Hebrew. Filled with a righteous anger, Moses intervened, striking down the oppressor and hiding his body in the sand, for he believed he could stand for justice, yet fear seized him, and he fled into the wilderness, uncertainty gnawing at his soul. The horizon trembled with the call of God, as he spoke in whispers only the faithful could hear. Shiphrah and Puah sensed a divine stirring, their faith intertwined with the fate of their people. They gathered at twilight, voices raised to the heavens. "Where is our deliverer?" They cried, but their hearts remained steady. "We know that God sees and knows our plight." And in the wilderness, the hand of the Lord began to mold Moses into the leader he was destined to be. He encountered the burning bush, and as the voice of the Almighty resonated through the flames, "I am who I am," a sacred encounter unfolded, igniting the fire of leadership in his heart. God's plan unfolded slowly, like the petals of a blooming flower, revealing the intricate design woven through the ages. Reassured by the faithfulness of the Almighty, Moses returned to Egypt, emboldened by the knowledge that he was not alone in his calling. The cries of the oppressed swirled like a tempest, and he bore a message not just for Pharaoh but a testament for all of Israel: "Let my people go." God's sovereign plan continued to weave through the narrative of his people, but what none could foresee was the monumental clash waiting to unfold between the hard heart of Pharaoh and the steadfast spirit of Moses, chosen for a purpose far beyond human understanding. Thus, while hope blossomed among the oppressed, the stage was set for an epic confrontation that would reveal the depths of God's mercy and the lengths to which he would go to redeem his people from the jaws of oppression. The dawn of deliverance was at hand, and yet the full realization of God's sovereign plan still shimmered just out of reach, holding the promise of redemption wrapped in divine mystery. And so it was that Moses ventured back into the land of his birth, the air heavy with a portentous silence, as if all of creation held its breath. The dust stirred beneath his feet as he approached the gates of Pharaoh's palace, the weight of his mission pressing down upon him like the heat of midday sun. "Who am I," he murmured, "that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" For deep within him lay the fears of his past and the echoes of a life once shielded from the hardship of his people. Yet the voice of the Lord pressed upon him: "I will be with you. This shall be your sign that I have sent you." With a heart ignited by the flame of divine purpose, Moses set forth the words the Almighty had bestowed upon him. Meanwhile, Shiphrah and Puah, moved by the Spirit, continued to gather the Hebrew women, their countenances glowing with resolute hope. "Our God has not forgotten us," they declared, their voices ringing like silver bells across the encampment. "He will send us a deliverer." The hearts of the women echoed in solidarity, for the strength of their faith fortified the resolve of a nation bound in chains. They prayed fervently together, their supplications rising like incense to the heavens. In the stillness of the night, a vision of freedom danced in their eyes, though their oppressor sought to snuff it out like a candle before a storm. As the dawn broke, Moses stood before Pharaoh, the soaring walls of the throne room casting long shadows upon him. "Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." His voice trembled, yet it carried the weight of divine authority. Pharaoh, seated upon his throne of arrogance, looked upon Moses with disdain. "Who is the Lord that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I know not the Lord, nor will I let Israel go." The hardness of his heart stood as an iron barrier against the call of the Almighty, igniting the fury in Moses' spirit. "Because you have refused to let my people go," the Lord had instructed Moses, "I will show you wonders, I will demonstrate my might." The air crackled with divine anticipation as signs and wonders awaited their moment, yet from the very foundation of Egypt, a spiritual battle unfolded. The cries of the Israelites, once hushed in despair, began to rise anew, echoing the promise of a deliverer. In the shadows, Shiphrah and Puah whispered of the miracles to come, their hearts steadfast in faith. "They are all around us, the signs of his promise," Puah murmured, her eyes gleaming with reverence. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the weight of Pharaoh's decrees pressed heavier upon the spirits of the Hebrew people. Yet hope burgeoned like a cosmic flower defying the winter frost, for they shared the words that stirred the lines of prophecy amongst them, "For I will bring you into the land which I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob." As the steadfast heart of Moses prepared for the confrontation to come, none could fathom the lengths of God's sovereign plan unfolding through his obedience and the faith of two midwives hidden in the fray. And thus, though ominous clouds gathered and the land trembled, perhaps a deeper mystery loomed ahead. The hopes of a nation intertwined with a promise, waiting to be unfurled in time, revealing how far God would go to fulfill his eternal covenant. And it came to pass that the hearts of the Hebrew people grew heavy with anticipation as Moses, emboldened by the voice of the Almighty, prepared to confront Pharaoh once more. Each step he took toward the throne was accompanied by the whispered prayers of Shiphrah and Puah, their faith intermingling with the pleas of a nation longing for deliverance. The air vibrated with spiritual tension, crackling like the distant rumble of thunder, heralding God's mighty hand at work. "Let my people go," Moses declared, each syllable echoing through the grand chamber, reverberating against the walls of oppression. Pharaoh, his heart hardened and filled with pride, scoffed at the decree from the Most High. "Who is the Lord?" he retorted, his voice dripping with contempt. "I shall not heed the words of a mere fugitive. You shall see suffering upon the people for your insolence." In this moment of confrontation, Shiphrah and Puah, along with all the Hebrew women, knelt in prayer, their hearts intertwined with hope and trepidation. "O Lord, be our shield and our strength," they cried out, their voices rising in unison, echoing through the heavens, as they trusted in the covenant promises once made to their ancestors. With each subsequent encounter, the Lord unleashed a series of plagues upon Egypt, signs and wonders that dismantled the very foundation of Pharaoh's pride. Flies swarmed, the waters turned to blood, and the darkness fell like a shroud over the land. Through it all, the Hebrew children remained untouched, a striking witness to the faithfulness of God amidst the storm of chaos. Meanwhile, Shiphrah and Puah ministered with renewed vigor. Their hearts swelled with gratitude as they witnessed testimonies of God's miraculous wonders manifest around them. Each mother cradling a newborn realized anew the depth of their calling, for in their hands lay the future of Israel, a multitude destined for greatness. In those final moments before the climactic confrontation, Moses stood firm before Pharaoh, standing as the Lord's chosen vessel, his heart aflame with divine purpose and unwavering authority. "The time has come for your hardness to bow," he proclaimed, "for the Lord's angel shall pass through and strike down the firstborn of Egypt but will protect his people. Release us." In the hushed silence that followed, determination surged through the hearts of every Hebrew. They gathered in their homes, marked by the blood of the Lamb, ready to cling to God's promise of salvation. It was as if time itself held its breath, waiting for the culmination of God's perfect plan. As night descended, the first Passover took place, an act of obedience steeped in faith. The angel of death swept through Egypt, yet the homes of the Israelites remained untouched, their allegiance firmly anchored in the promises of God. The cries of mourning rang through the land as Pharaoh faced the death of his own, the weight of his choices crashing down upon him. In that moment, history was irrevocably transformed. With a heart burdened yet finally yielding, Pharaoh summoned Moses and declared, "Go. Take your people and serve your God." The decree echoed throughout Egypt as freedom rang victorious over oppression. Shiphrah and Puah rejoiced, embracing their people in a tidal wave of hope and possibility. Every child they had delivered now embodied the promise that God had woven into the very fabric of their existence. Their hearts soared, not only for the lives saved but for the legacy they had birthed in their quiet courage against insurmountable odds. As the Hebrew people stepped out of Egypt, they carried with them the sacred weight of deliverance, the very essence of what it meant to be free. The sea parted before them, a testament to God's might, leading them into a new covenant where his children could dwell in safety and promise. Shiphrah and Puah among them, hearts united with those they served, danced with joy, realizing that their humble obedience had been a catalyst for their people's liberation. They had witnessed the great unfolding of God's sovereignty, where too. Midwives, hidden yet bold in faith, played an indispensable role in elevating God's redemptive plan. And thus a new chapter began, marked not by oppression but by freedom. The generations to come would speak of the great deliverance, the unwavering faith of two courageous servants, the sweeping power of God's love throughout history. In light of this powerful testimony, I urge you, subscribe immediately to our channel so you do not miss the next incredible biblical stories. We are here to share God's messages that have transformed hearts and lives across generations. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, ensuring more souls are reached with the message of his unfailing love. Comment below with your spiritual reflections and share how this story has impacted your faith. Your insights bring inspiration. And finally, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth today. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony. Only true believers understand the importance of spreading biblical content to reach more souls for Christ.